Well, today I'm interviewing the first person for my documentary series for Inner City Outlaws. I want to introduce Brother Al. Introduce yourself.
My name is Brother Al Freedom. I'm the former, I would say, warlord originally, turned peacekeeper of the Justice of Manhattan.
Give me a history of yourself.
I was born and raised in Barrio.
Okay.
Basically, that's my roots there.
How did you get involved with gangs?
That came about when I was in junior high school. I actually reluctantly became involved in the gang culture of the 70s while growing up in Spanish Harlem.
Which was the first gang you joined?
Well, ultimately, it was the Justice of Manhattan.
Okay.
Eventually,
Wasn't you previously a member of the Junior Wings?
well, yeah, actually, that was a softball team that was started by a gentleman named Ralph Flores, who was a counselor with the Washington Houses community at the Washington Houses Community Center in El Barrio, and he had this. He had well, he was much older than me, so he went back to the days of uh, the 50s with the Italian uh, with the Italian gang in El Barrio,
Hmm.
or actually in Italian Harlem, called the Red Wings. They were, I believe, used to free. Were over there on First Avenue. You know, the Italian territory.
Right.
So you know, while he was growing up, that was the gang of the time. That the Viceroys, the Dragons. You know. So anyway, later on, he uh, he he created a softball team named after that Italian gang, the Red Wings. So then I was on that softball team. I was a teenage kid,
Hmm.
and then I turned. So then I took the soft. I took the name of the softball team, the Red Wings, and turned it into a street club.
Okay. So, who started the Justice of Manhattan?
I that I know of the two founders from El Barrio were Terrell,
Hmm.
that I know of, who could tell you better is probably David Decent Calderon,
Okay.
who helped build the Imperial Spartans.
Right.
But
Right.
that from my experience, it was Uncle Mike and Terrell
Okay.
who well, they were originally members. I don't know if they were founders of the Justice of Manhattan. Then of course you had this brother I understand named Chicky in Brooklyn who founded the Justice of Brooklyn, which was our brother club.
Right.
But
Use the same club but just different boroughs.
yeah, same club. Yeah, same club, different boroughs. Right.
Uh, so who was your allies when you was Justice of Manhattan? Who were your allies and enemies?
Our main ally was the Renegades of Harlem.
Okay.
Yeah, those I was very tight with those brothers that was in that organization, that street club. Uh, um, I'll tell you something interesting. When I was involved with them, I didn't know that they were at the same time developing housing. I didn't even know that,
Right.
you know, because it was funny because they wanted me to disband the Justice of Manhattan and become a renegade of Harlem,
Right. Right.
and which would not have been a bad idea
Hmm.
because I would have been all. I think me being the person that I am, I would have probably been very much interested in developing housing
That would
in
have been
El
nice.
Barrio
Yeah.
for our folks, affordable housing.
Of course. Because now rent these days are a lot of
Yeah,
money.
that's one of the reasons,
Right. Right. Right.
to
Right.
for um, um, what is it? Was it for home for you to own a home?
Right. Right. And your enemies for Justice of Manhattan?
Well, I didn't have enemies. Some of those other street clubs, made themselves. I didn't have enemies to anybody.
They beefed with your club.
It was more like they were the went about causing problems.
The troublemakers, yeah.
Which caused which was causing problems.
Mm-hmm.
I liked being a neutral kind of guy.
Right.
You know, I was with the club and with myself and with the club. But if you want to talk about clubs that came after us, it was definitely the Savage Summerites.
Right.
Mainly them.
Mainly them?
Yeah, mainly them. The Savage Summerites.
And I know you guys had, well, they had beef with you, the Satan Spades and the Wild Aces.
The Aces weren't too thrilled with us either.
Right.
Although, and it's interesting because at the time Earl was the prez.
Mm-hmm.
When I was around, Earl was the prez.
Right.
I found out, I think from Decent that
Right.
it was actually a guy named Ace that was the prez, something like that. But when I was around, it was Earl, and so Earl and Terrell, my Supreme Prez, were brothers.
Okay.
But yeah, I saw that Earl was itching to start static with us.
Right.
For whatever his personal reasons were.
And
not only us, but remember, we were his brother's club.
Yeah.
Because his brother was our Supreme Prez.
So y'all were brother clubs.
And Uncle Mike was our Supreme Prez. So I never understood where this brother was coming from with wanting to
engage in a rumble with you guys.
Engage us in violence.
Right.
Essentially, just like the Savage Summerites. I'm gonna keep this interview very real and speak my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about some of the goings on that occurred during that time.
Right. And the structure of the Justice of Manhattan, what were they? Because I know there was three of them. I know.
Oh, we basically got the Justice of Manhattan and basically the Baby Justice.
Right. So you guys said.
And who ran that was a kid named who we put in charge of that. Of the Baby Justice was a kid named Chico.
Mm-hmm.
Little Chico.
Right.
He was the president, and he had his own crew of
Right.
these young kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're very young. But
Right.
we didn't have a young. We had Justice, and then
Baby.
the babies, and
Okay.
that was Chico and his crew.
Right. And since it was you guys only had two divisions, one in Manhattan and one in Brooklyn. What made the Justice of Manhattan break up?
Us or before
No, you guys.
us. I got politics. That's a very interesting. Let me tell you that. That's an interesting story. What occurred was that. Well, remember, I was a reluctant participant in all of it. In this phenomena of gangs.
Right.
Well, I mean, it does date back to the 5 points and the gangs in New York.
Of course.
So fast forward to my era now. Yeah, I wasn't really participate in that. It was a matter of survival.
Right, of course.
So I with that said, I would say that I'm not surprised that it led to me becoming friends with a gentleman named Carlos La Guerra, who was a paraprofessional at Junior High School 99 for the Board of Education. He was a paraprofessional for the Board of Education, and who was good friends with a guy named Americo Barrios, who had been a very active member of the Young Lords Party.
Right.
I believe during the founding and all the way up to when the Lords basically stopped being active.
Right. That was like in 1972 that they stopped being active.
The Lords became. I could be wrong. They were active as far as because Yaruba, Pablo Guzman was trying to keep it alive.
Right.
He was the last holdout of the organization.
Right.
But I think they finally, the Lords finally dissolved in the Young Lords Party probably dissolved in 75. I could be wrong, maybe a little earlier. But as late as 75, because then Richie Paris it evolved into other organizations, the Young Lord Party.
Right.
Eventually, I think it wound up it finally wound up being the National Congress of Puerto Rican Rights. That's where Richie Paris took it,
Right.
which later on in the '90s I was a member of.
Right.
But getting back to how this dissolved, how I dissolved it, the Justice of Manhattan was that Carlos was the paralegal in the class. Carlos Laguerre was the paralegal in the class, and he was I was actually talking to him about what I was experiencing in the gangs.
Right. And you wanted to do change.
Yeah, and I wanted to get out of the gangs.
Right,
So he actually took me and we went to go see Terrell, the Supreme Prez.
Right.
And Carlos had a brother named Mousy that was known in the streets.
Right.
May have even known the Samurais as well.
Right.
But so as a result of that, Carlos had his own rep at the time as well. He carried his own weight.
Right.
But it didn't hurt that he was the brother Mousy, who was a brother that was known in the streets.
Right.
In and out of the penitentiary.
Right.
He'd bust his gun.
Right.
He did what he did.
Exactly.
Back in those days. He was a good brother with me. Always had my back. Actually, Mousy. I got a lot of love for Mousy. Actually.
Right.
Mousy was a good brother, under the circumstances, and you got to remember, this is El Barrio in the '70s.
Right.
We didn't quite have knowledge of self
At the time
yet,
Right.
So anyway, Carlos got me out of the gangs.
Okay.
We paid a visit to Terrell. Long story short, and he said, "This is my kid now. He's not going to be in the clique anymore." And that was it. And then later on, that was it. I left no Apache line, none of that.
Right.
I was so relieved actually that Carlos helped me do that.
Yeah, because Apache lines is no joke. I've seen a couple of them.
Oh yeah. I was trying to go through that. You might not survive. You might not survive to see another day.
And
but later on, then after that, Carlos introduced me to Americo Barrios, and Americo started politicizing me, and turned me on actually to the Young Lords and whatnot, and I continued from there, actually years later.
Right.
But it was a great experience actually meeting Americo,
Right.
And learning of the Young Lords, because as a 9-year-old child, I remember them doing their thing, the garbage offensive and whatnot, but I didn't quite understand what was going on.
Right.
A lot of people were afraid of the Lords,
And their political views.
And the political views, yeah, because I believe they were indoctrinated to believe stuff that actually wasn't true.
Right.
I was neither here nor there. I was just wondering, trying to figure out what they were about. It wasn't until I was a teenager, and then I met Americo that I started understanding what the Young Lords were about. That they were simply trying to improve the quality of life for the Puerto Ricans, especially in New York City.
Right. What about the Young Lords Inc. that you started in the 90s?
That's me later on in the 90s.
Right.
Because of because I kept studying politics. I became a sort of a political scientist as I got older.
Right.
So in the 90s, I had the opportunity as a result of my political awareness and of course also gaining knowledge of self.
Of course.
I don't want to get off of it, but I also for a hot minute got learned about the 5% Nation. That's another story.
Right.
I will say that they were onto something good. They were onto something good, but I don't know. that quite. The 5% nation never could have bring about a lot of positive change on humanity as a whole,
Right.
to help elevate
Right.
humanity.
Right.
But unfortunately, I never saw that occur with them. But that's another organization that I'm grateful for, because they helped jumpstart my education in of my education in gaining knowledge of self.
Right. Right.
So I'm grateful for that.
How did you get involved with Zulu Nation?
Again, that was in the 90s. That was again in the 90s. Again, I created the Young Lords based on years of learning,
Right.
and that experience of meeting Americo.
Right. Right.
So anyway, it was a point in my life where I wanted to help give back to the community.
Right.
Right? Put some of that knowledge to practical use. So I was just trying to help the youth and improve help the youth basically, get educated like I did.
Right. Right.
With the Young Lords Incorporated.
So when you joined up with Zulu Nation, was it
Okay, so Zulu Nation,
right.
That happened simultaneously actually.
Okay.
Again, another great organization helping the youth.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunately what later happened with Africa Bambaataa, but we can't, you just can't totally dismiss the good that he did do with that organization.
Right.
Cause he was coming, he was teaching stuff that later on, man, we would see come about. We see come about.
Right. Right.
You know.
And your chapter was in Yonkers or in Manhattan?
Well, I helped start a chapter 50 with a young brother named Danny Salgado,
Right.
who lived in Yonkers, and I helped him start his chapter 50.
Right. Because we're from the same chapter but different divisions.
Right.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Because you started yours in Yonkers. My division, well, my chapter leader's division was on 191st in St. Nick. And when I founded my own chapter, it was on 159th between Amsterdam and Broadway. So it was, I just didn't know any other chapter 50 just besides my chapter leader chapter and my chapter. But I knew other chapters like Gestapo's, chapter 4 Black Spade, chapter 7 Alienation. Those chapters I knew. But I never knew about other chapters like chapter 50s from the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens. I never knew them. And then when you told me you was from chapter 50, I was like, oh, I didn't know they were up in Yonkers because it was new to me, you know. But how did you change your life after everything you went through?
How did I change my life?
After,
It just kept evolving. I wouldn't say.
like, how did
It
you?
kept evolving.
Right, because all the stuff that you went through, knowledge of self. You had a political awakening. You had older brothers to steer you to the right path and stuff like that. So how did that influence you to be the man that you are today?
Because of those very same experiences that I
Right.
had. That's how they influenced me, by experiencing these people and taking in their knowledge, and then later on building onto that.
Okay.
I would later get very heavily political with organizations such as the National Liberty Alliance,
Right.
and the Patriot movement in the United States.
Right.
And then I got into the study of law.
Right. And then that's your field now. That's your professional career as we speak.
Yeah, from the study of politics and the law, I actually later on, a lot of stuff went on in the 90s. The
Right.
Young Lords for me, right? The Young Lords Incorporated,
Right.
Zulu Nation. Wow, I totally skipped over being involved in the Puerto Rican independence movement
Right.
as well,
Right.
right? Which is aligned with what the Young Lords Party was about.
Right.
And then, of course, the Young Lords Incorporated as well.
Right. But we got to give a special thanks to brother Al Freedom, and with his participation And we definitely got to give a shout out.
But lastly, in closing,
Yes.
you know, I want to let the youth know
Okay.
that they should steer away from any of that gang culture that may still be occurring today,
Right.
right? Because if you're mixed up in that, you're gonna wind up eventually just living either, if you're lucky, just a miserable life, because that's not where your head should be at.
Right.
Irregardless of your indoctrination or your environment, you got cream always rises to the top.
Right.
All of you, some of you, I don't know how deep your programming is, might not get this, but those that do hear me, that can get it, you know, you should be okay. I'm telling you to elevate. So I'm telling you to elevate your mind, because you're either going to live a miserable existence because of your state of mind. You're going to wind up dead or in a penitentiary. Become a commodity in the prison industrial complex. Stay clear of that. Listen to, you got guys from the mob talking about that, like Jimmy Calandra, who says, who will tell you, don't follow that route. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing cool about it. Like I said, early death, prison, or just living a miserable existence.
Right.
So, the choice is yours.
Right.
But I wanna give my thanks to Brother Mario for giving me this platform to send, really most importantly, send this message out to the youth that stay away from violence is not the way. Violence is the road to ruin. Take the road to peace, because that's where the future's at. See, I'm an elder now. All I can do is share my life experiences with you, in hopes of you creating a better world. Mm-hmm. And we really, especially today, we really need. We're at a fork road where we can create a better world, and hopefully we will. We need to.
Right.
We need to, and I think we will.
Right.
Because I think that's human beings' destiny to create a more civilized, peaceful world.
Right.
And it'd be nice if I could see that. I'd like to see that in my lifetime.
Right.
But thank you, Maru, and much love and respect to the people that gave me the experiences and help
tools.
me evolve. Yeah, listen, man, it's all good. That whole gang culture it's all good. Because I turned it into a positive.
Right.
It's all good. You need evils. We need evil. We need evil, negativity, to show us the light.
Right. We got to get a special shout out to Jose Chacha Jimenez, founder and leader of the Young Lords Party. May he rest in peace. I found out recently that he passed away November 22nd, 2021. And I shared it with my brother Alfred. And we just want to give a shout out to Jose Chacha Jimenez of the Young Lords Party.
Yeah, well, yeah. Chacha was the chairman. Yeah,
Right.
And you see, I had similar experience. He went from gangbanger, met Fred Hampton in jail, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and got politicized.
Yeah.
And Fred told him. Fred, let him know. You're hurting your own neighborhood with all this violence.
Right.
And negativity.
Right.
And we got to give a shout out to our chairman Fred Hampton
From the Black Panthers Party, yeah.
Cause if it wasn't for Fred, they wouldn't. If it wasn't for Fred Hampton, Cha-Cha would have never got politicized and never would have created a young lord organization.
Right.
That, you know what? We needed we desperate Puerto Rican people desperately needed a Puerto Rican party.
Right.
Yeah, a young lords party like that.
Right.
Puerto Ricans getting organized to bring about change, and in housing, in
Right.
healthcare, and whatnot.
Right.
You know, you know, of course it was other problems, but those are two that quickly come to mind to me.
Right.
You know, that we needed that. We had poor housing, man. We lived in substandard housing.
Right.
We terrible health care.
Right.
You know.
A lot of it was a lot going on during the late '60s and '70s because the government didn't care. There was trash piled up. A third of the population in the Bronx was tested positive for TB. They had to hijack a X-ray machine to
Yeah,
by
the X-ray truck, right?
the X-ray truck from the old Lincoln Hospital.
For the TB, yeah, right, yeah. Well, I'm inclined to agree with Ronald Reagan. Government is the problem.
Yeah, right. It's always gonna be the problem. Well, brother, it was a pleasure doing this interview with you. I wish you nothing but blessings. Stay positive, and hopefully the message that you put on this first episode reaches the minds of the youth so they could do positive things and follow in your footsteps so they could make a better community for the Latinos.
Yeah, love is the message.